Here with the CCO of FTN, Mike Randle, at Randle Rant on Twitter. And he also goes out picks every week for FTN Fantasy. Let's talk awards, big guy. It's the last week. We have to do our yearly roundup here at the end here. So yeah, I mean, we'll jump in MVP. Obviously, we have Lamar Jackson minus 1,000. I mean, or 10,000. He's gonna get it. But yeah, let's jump in. Do we think he deserves it?
Listen, Lamar Jackson is going to get it, but I think there is a chasm of a difference between who deserves it and who's going to get it. Baltimore's been fantastic, and you know as well as I do, this comes down to who gets hot at the right time. And there's also award fatigue, which we will talk about. You can't tell me that Tyreek Hill has not been the most valuable player in the NFL this year. Look at Miami. Tua entered the season. We were worried about the concussions. He's now going to be the only receiver in NFL history with back-to-back 1,700-yard receiving yard seasons. If he didn't get injured, he would have broke Calvin Johnson's record. He's been explosive. He's done it against every sort of defense, whether they rank with DVOA here per Aaron shots, great at defending wide receiver ones. He's still toasting them. A team like the Patriots, he was still able to score against them. So I get it. It is Lamar Jackson. I don't have a problem with that. Lamar's great, bet on himself with the contract, and really has delivered here for the Ravens. But I would say the jury's out about him in the playoffs. We can get into that. But I think Tyreek Hill really should be given credit because for the overwhelming majority of the year, in my mind, there was no doubt he was the MVP. And he's not on a team like Brock Purdy, who has multiple other players. Yes, Jalen Waddle's there. Yes, Raheem Mostert. But we saw Jamal Williams score all those touchdowns last year. He has 0 this year. So the running back touchdowns doesn't do it for me. I like Tyreek, but it's going to be Lamar.
Yeah, if he didn't get injured, I actually think he would have had a bet on him, and I had a bet on Christian McCaffrey. I think either of them would have been phenomenal options. I just think that the narrative obviously went Lamar's way, and he, it's the right place, right time. He had the 49ers at the right time. If that 49ers game was in week 3, it probably wouldn't have mattered as much. But you know what? It was Christmas Day. It was Monday night. It was, standalone game, most watched game of the year on ESPN. And, at the end of the day, that's kind of what we look at here is, big moment, big game. And they absolutely annihilated the Niners. And then he had the 5-touchdown game when he knew the MVP was in his back pocket. He knew if he has a big game here, he's going to be talking about it, talking about the award on February 8th. So, it's a bummer. I think that McCaffrey or Tyreek Hill, I think this is a year. There's ever a year to go non-quarterback. It was this year. It hasn't happened in a long time. And it just feels like it's probably never going to happen if it doesn't happen this year. His stats aren't going to compare to his 2019 season. I did a comparison of that over the last 2 weeks. And that was even projecting him out to play for the rest of the year and play next on Sunday, which he's not going to do, or Saturday, which he's not going to do. So, his stats aren't really even going to be there. So, it's weird. It's weird because his stats are not going to be there, but he's still going to win MVP. Very strange scenario here. Let's jump into let's jump into comeback player of the year. We have Hamlin minus 275, Flacco plus 250, Baker Mayfield 13-1. Those odds are by DraftKings. Are you a Hamlin guy?
I think it has to be Hamlin, Eric. I think at some point it becomes bigger than the game. And obviously the situation was so almost on the verge of a tragedy. I get it with DeMar Hamlin coming back. I do give Joe Flacco an awful lot of credit. And I think in any other situation, Joe Flacco coming back and leading the Browns here. Again, remember, Joe Flacco's an interesting guy. Turned down a contract, bet on himself with the Ravens, delivered the Super Bowl here. So he's a confident guy. He's got a big arm. And we've seen so many quarterbacks get injured. Look at all the quarterbacks, even Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, sort of the 3 top quarterbacks that everyone thought coming into the year, haven't had the year that people thought they would. It's hard to be a successful NFL quarterback. It is Hamlin. I do give credit to Joe Flacco, though. What a performance he had. And who knows, the Browns could get hot here in the playoffs would be incredible. But yes, I think it's Hamlin for all the reasons that everyone knows.
Yeah, so I'm like rocking this Browns jersey almost as a joke. This is the best Browns quarterback in NFL history. It's not Joe Flacco. It's a Johnny Manziel Browns jersey.
Johnny Manziel, yeah.
I actually think Hamlin has value at minus 275. I think that he could even come close to unanimously winning this. Yeah. Flacco wasn't on a team until like week 12, and I think that feeds into the narrative. But also, I don't know. I just feel like it's going to be Hamlin. I mean, Hamlin was as high as minus 1,000 at different parts of the year. So I agree. I tend to agree with you. I think that Hamlin's going to be the guy.
Especially, Eric, because he got in games. They made a big deal. It wasn't just a guy who came back and didn't get in. He got into games. It was a big deal, as it should be. They were broadcasting it. So I think that is, and you're right, I think there is still value there, to be honest.
Yeah. That was something that I wrote about in the past, was that like Hamlin a couple times was a healthy scratch, a couple times in the beginning of the year, but since then that hasn't been the case. He's been actually playing, and he has like almost every special team snap, and he's actually getting some defensive snaps too. So seems like he's almost back to where he was, which is, very good, and he's going to win it. So minus 275 value there. I'm putting that as a pick for me. No doubt about it. Offensive player of the year. The injury is really going to screw Tyreek here, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. It is. It certainly is. It's going to be McCaffrey. And look, Christian McCaffrey, fantastic. The touchdowns, receiving, rushing, only about 1,500 yards, which tends to be low for a running back here. But Miami has outperformed and still can actually find their way to the 2 seed. I get it. I just have a problem when it comes down to touchdowns, because I think they are so non-sticky. They don't stick from year to year. I mentioned Jamal Williams last year leading the NFL with Detroit, and this year not doing much. But Christian McCaffrey has been the center of that offense. Yes, they have Ayuk. Yes, they have Brock Purdy, who's played well, Kittle, Debo, all that stuff. I just feel like Tyreek's season has been so special, and he's left out in the cold here. But it is going to be McCaffrey, center of the best team, what it looks like here. A lot of pressure on Kyle Shanahan, Eric. They got to get across the line here now. But yeah, Christian McCaffrey's superb. Remember when we thought Christian McCaffrey couldn't stay healthy? That seems like years ago. But the touchdown record too, scoring touchdowns in so many games, holding him out here for a big run in the playoffs. Yes, I feel like Tyreek should get something.
The Tyreek Hill coming out of the season with nothing is just wild to me. Mm-hmm. At one point he was pacing at 2,200 yards, and then he had the one injury, the 1 week that totally ended it for him. Bummer. I think it should be Tyreek. Who never got any talk about it was I know it was before last week, obviously, but before last week, Mike Evans could have had a shot at it, because his season was huge, and he's not even on the board at Sportsbooks. I just think that's a little wild to me. I think he actually might get some votes.
He's not on the board, and he kept Amon-Ra St. Brown out of the Pro Bowl. And look, Amon-Ra is going to find his way there, because the Pro Bowl works. But the idea that the guy who's number 2 in receptions is not finding his way to the Pro Bowl. But again, Mike Evans just consistently going after the Jerry Rice record, the 1,000 yards receiving for a team in Tampa Bay. And this does matter when we get to some of the other awards. A team that at the beginning of the year, no one thought much about. I will give a shout out to our Aaron Schatz here at FTN. He talked about how Tampa Bay was a sneaky team to win this division. I was focused on the Falcons. Everyone liked the Saints. The Saints were the betting favorite here, but Tampa Bay has really come through. And I think that plays into the awards when you really have outperformed what we thought preseason.
Yeah, I got burned on the Saints. I'm not a big fan of Derek Carr right now. I had them in a division parlay, and they're the only ones that are going to lose. So that's a bummer for me. Let's talk defensive player of the year, and then we'll get to some other sticky ones. Myles Garrett favored, Micah Parsons, TJ Watt, second and third, and that's kind of it. Garrett, he was the underdog coming into the week. I know that in terms of win rate at the line, Garrett and Parsons are 1 and 2. Actually 1 and 3. Will Anderson is second. Are you on Garrett here? Do you think that there's value there, or do you think there's actually value on Parsons?
I don't think Parsons is going to win it. I don't. I think Dallas. What people have to understand is that there is an element of these awards that you can't separate from the team's success. People like to do that, but it does matter in reality here. The Cowboys have struggled on the road, have not had big wins on the road. Parsons has been good, solid throughout the entire year, but without the team having that dominant win where they can go out and really find a way to prove that they're not just king of the little people and they're not just a team that wins at home, which, by the way, they should have lost to Detroit, last week. I think that hurts his candidacy. Certainly, if you look at the most dominant units of the year, you're going to look at Cleveland. Cleveland right now is slightly behind Baltimore in DVOA here at FTN. They are number 2 against the pass, the number 2 against the run. You know all the quarterback issues that Cleveland has had, and Myles Garrett has been the centerpiece of what from start to finish has really been the best defense in the NFL this year. They were keeping them in games when Deshaun Watson wasn't playing well. They lost Nick Chubb, all of those points. So I think it's Garrett here. I get Micah Parsons. I just don't think he's going to win. I think it's good value, but I don't see them giving it to it over Garrett because the Browns defense has been better than the Cowboys defense, and the Cowboys have shown issues, and maybe this shouldn't factor in winning big road games.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely the best. They're definitely the best group, and you make a good point about the Cowboys losing to the should have losing to the Lions, and they have had some blowout spots. The only thing that I could just see as being frustrating for Parsons is that he was odds on favor last year, and then this year it just seems like he's going to lose out on this award both times. Who knows if he'll get it next year, and injuries and et cetera. I'm interested to see what happens with Parsons the rest of his career if he's going to keep missing out on this award, because it's probably going to be Garrett. You're right. Offensive Rookie of the Year. I actually had some. I think this one's closer than what the odds suggest. Personally, CJ Stroud's -1,000 on BetMGM and DraftKings right now. Puka Nacua is about to set the rookie receiving record. Plus 450, get about plus 600 on Bet365 if you have access to that. I've been tossing it around in my head. What say you?
You're totally right. Stroud has not been great in games that are outdoors. This goes back to college. So, yes, Stroud has been fantastic, and the Texans' narrative has been fantastic. You're right with Puka Nacua. The only thing that is working against Puka Nacua right now is people view him as a later round draft pick, and they don't give him that credit. The biggest travesty I see here, Eric, is how is Bijan Robinson fourth? Who is voting for Bijan Robinson? Forget the draft capital. Forget Atlanta. He has not had a lot of big moments. Sam Laporta is like behind him. And I can make an argument that Sam Laporta, as a rookie tight end who normally don't perform here. I mean, the last time we saw a rookie do something like this, we'll be going back to Jeremy Shockey. Yep. I mean, look, so I'm not saying Laporta should win it, but I'm saying that the market is not priced correctly. Jahmyr Gibbs has come on strongly here, but I agree. I think there's value in Nacua. I absolutely think he can win. Yes, quarterbacks get it, CJ Stroud, but suppose Stroud does not win this week. Suppose they lose that game and Nacua has another monster game, sets the record. I don't know. I agree with you. I think there's value, but I don't know why Bijan Robinson is still fourth. That's crazy.
What I want to know is, when do these awards go out? Like, when do the votes go out? How important is this week in reality, right? Because if they lose and Texans miss the playoffs, I think that there's a world where Nacua wins it. And just to follow up your point on Laporta, 860 yards receiving, 9 touchdowns, is comparable, very comparable to Shockey, who had 894 and just 2 touchdowns for the 2002 Giants. Obviously, and then the tight end record for a rookie is Ditka in 1961. So he had 1076 receiving yards. Laporta's right there. He's already 5th, and he still has another game to play. So one big game, I mean a huge game, he would be 140 yards. He's at 1,000, which only 2 people have done. I think Nakua's live. I really do. Another one where we're seeing crazy odd shifts. Lots of books are talking about it too. Jalen Carter was -1,000 on Tuesday. He is all the way down to -125 on FanDuel. Not a game has been played since then, so this is just money moving the market. I don't know if a voter said something, but that's crazy movement for something where you haven't even seen a game played yet to move that. So where are we on this Jalen Carter, Will Anderson thing? I don't know. This is weird.
Yeah, listen, my concern is going to be that is the Texans have outperformed where we thought they were going to be. CJ Stroud, they were talking about passing on him with the number 2 pick. He ends up being the best quarterback selection. You can talk about Coach of the Year, which we'll get into. You can talk about Defensive Player of the Year. There's a lot here. Will Anderson is very live here, and you're getting good value on him. Jalen Carter obviously was dominant, but this Eagles defense has not played well. You can't tell me, Eric, that the Eagles not being able to stop Arizona at home in a game that they had to have didn't hurt Jalen Carter a little bit. Again, don't forget there is an element of the team that goes into these awards, whether you like it or not. So I think Will Anderson is very live. He has been a fantastic player for them in the defense, the pass rush to Mecca Ryans. Absolutely. I think he's worth a value here. And Jalen Carter was the leader in the clubhouse, but you can't tell me that game didn't matter because that was a shocking result. How about this vaunted Eagles rush defense, which was #1 in the NFL, can't stop James Conner?
Nothing. They can't do anything right now. And not for nothing, Giants +5.5. The Eagles are probably, the Cardinals aren't, the Cowboys aren't losing to the Commanders. They're going to be scoreboard watching, probably sit everybody in the second half if the Cowboys get out into a huge lead. I think the Eagles could outright lose this game, in which case I cannot imagine a world where Will Anderson doesn't get it. But again, it matters when voters are submitting their ballots because this week matters for this award. So if you just automatically is like, well, Jalen, if the awards voters even look at odds, you see -1,000, and then you're like, all right, so it's clearly Jalen Carter. But statistically, it's really not. Will Anderson has more tackles, same amount of sacks, more hurries, better snap percentages.
Yep.
He finished the year significantly higher. He has several grades over 85 on Pro Football Focus in the last 6 weeks. And Jalen Carter doesn't have any. He had a grade an F grade 3 weeks ago. I forget which game it was, but it was like 3 or 4 weeks ago. Jalen Carter had an F grade in one of his games. His snap rates aren't very good for a season long. I think that Will Anderson should be favored. Snap count week 16, Jalen Carter 33% of snaps. He has only had one game where he's played 80% of snaps, and every other half his games he's playing less than half the snaps. As a defensive lineman, I mean, Fletcher Cox is playing 78% of snaps most weeks. He's like 45 years old. So
yep. Eagles 27th per defensive DVOA here at FTN, 29th against the pass. Have just dropped. They were so strong, not anymore. It's very difficult for us to give that award to someone for a team here that has really struggled.
Yeah. I agree. The only thing that could hurt Will Anderson is that he did miss 3 games. That hurts. That certainly hurts.
The way that you balance that out is because, again, scoring and doing things in the clutch matter. Derek Jeter made a career of it here in New York. You coming on strong at the end of the season in the big games is going to matter. You nailed it with Lamar, Christmas, the whole thing. So Will Anderson, big game here. People are going to forget about those missed games.
Fair. I'm in. I mean, it's +225 on MGM right now. And there's no way that'll be available by tomorrow. So no one else is higher than +200 right now on Will Anderson. So yeah, that's where we're at on there. Will Anderson, Defensive Rookie of the Year. Still think it's good. Let's finish it up here. Coach of the Year. Stefanski's clearly favored at this point in time. It was Dan Campbell the whole year. And then we saw, just like last year, it was Nick Sirianni the whole year. And we watched it flip over time. Same thing with Mike Vrabel the year before. I think it was Kyle Shanahan, I think, was favored that year. I'd have to look. I believe it was Shanahan or McVay. And they were favored for the whole year. And then it flipped again. Coach of the Year, you basically can't look at until 3 or 4 weeks left in the year. Maybe 5. I was on Sean Payton. I was wrong. And I switched my stance to Stefanski 2 weeks ago when it was +900, and it seems like he's going to win it. That's my pick. What say you?
My issue with Stefanski is this. First off, he's won it already. Secondly, we thought the Browns were going to be good. I recognize 4 different quarterbacks. I understand that. Guided the ship. But they did not even win their division. Baltimore was better in the division. We thought Cleveland could be good. It was very bunched up. To me, the story has been Dan Campbell, and it's really frustrating because they should have beaten the Cowboys. And if they do, and they end up having the 2 seed, I think he's very solid. But because that didn't happen, he's now down to 4th. He's behind on DraftKings, behind Shane Steichen. How is that even possible? The Lions are a legitimate contender here for the Super Bowl. Preseason, we go back. It was Campbell. It was Peyton. It was Arthur Smith. It was Eberflus. Of course, Robert Saleh. But things, obviously, with the Jets struggling with Aaron Rodgers, that was different. I just think Detroit is a solid team. I think they're a Super Bowl contender. I think he delivered. He got them to win the division for the first time in 30 years. I think we're selling that a little bit short. I think a case can be made for DeMeco Ryans. I think Stefanski's done a fantastic job. But I think that Campbell has delivered at a higher level. And I think that the Browns were good. Their defense is fantastic. And the fact that he's won it already, I think matters to me. Maybe it doesn't matter to the voters. He is probably going to win it. My vote would go for Dan Campbell because he's delivered with a team, even with high expectations.
I think you're nuts. Dan Campbell, they lost that game because of Dan Campbell. He gets a demerit for that. You know what I mean? Like, he gets a slap on the wrist for that. He went for 2 from the 7.
Yes, he got. You're right about that. He should not have gone for 2 for the 7. But to be fair, you can't tell me that he messed up subbing those players in. I don't want to buy it.
No, he didn't. But you don't go for 2 from the 7 either. I don't see, and also like just in turn, they didn't really have many injuries at all, and so there wasn't like in terms of like things you have to deal with throughout the year. There really wasn't a whole lot of that there, and their expectation was 10.5 wins. They're sitting at 11 right now. So if they get to 12, awesome. But that's not that high over expectation. If you had told me that Joe Flacco was going to have to come in and play quarterback for the Browns, their 10.5 win expectation would probably go down to 7.5. Or I don't know how many wins Deshaun Watson's worth per year, but against the spread, I'd say he's worth probably like 3.5 points a week. So you could probably do the math there for all the lines. I think it's Stefanski. I think it's going to be Ryans, and McVay, Campbell, 3rd and 4th for me. But
at least you have Campbell ahead of Shane Steichen, even though the odds
has no business being in this conversation. Gardner Minshew has not been. If they had Anthony Richardson and Anthony Richardson took a major step forward and whatever. I mean, he got Anthony Richardson almost killed twice. So definitely not. Steichen shouldn't even be in the conversation. And I have not been on Steichen at all this whole time. I have for my bets, I had a lot of just shares of specific coaches. I had Stefanski, I had McVay, I had Todd Bowles. I had Todd Bowles. He was 150 to 1. He got as low as 20 to 1. Now he's back up to 150 to 1 because they got annihilated by the Saints at home in a big game. And you can't do that. But if you're going to win the award, you can't do that. But I had Bowles. I really thought Bowles could get it, and I have a little bit of McVay too. I think that McVay could definitely be there. I don't know. Does Harbaugh deserve conversation because they have the best team? I mean, the best record.
Yeah, I think he has to be head and shoulders. They have the best team. They have the MVP. I get that. To me, the story this year, one of the stories in the NFL has been the Lions. I give Stefanski credit for overcoming everything that he did. I just think Detroit has delivered in a situation as a program that has been terrible a team for 30 years. He's brought back respectability to Detroit, and for that, I will reward him. But we do agree. Stefanski's done an incredible job. 4 different quarterbacks. Joe Flacco wasn't even in the league. I support that. I just do think that also works against them, and maybe it shouldn't when they've won it once before.
Fair enough. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, for what it's worth, when I talked to Aaron Schatz a couple weeks ago, it was like 4 or 5 weeks ago when I was talking up Sean Payton, thinking that when they were on like the middle of like a 6-game win streak, he was all over Dan Campbell. And I disagreed with him, and I disagree with you. All of you over there are just all over Dan Campbell. I disagree with all of it. Finishing thoughts. What do you got? Anything?
I think it's going to be a great playoff. And I do think this, Eric. I have been on the Bills. Aaron predicted San Francisco and Buffalo at the beginning of the year. Remember last year he nailed the Eagles getting to the Super Bowl. Don't let Buffalo get in. We've seen Green Bay. We've seen Aaron Rodgers get hot from the 6, now the 7 spot. Don't let Buffalo get in. We have all these best balls, everything that we're doing here at FTN. The Bills, now listen, they may not even make the playoffs. I get that. But if they get in as the 2 seed, Miami has injuries now. Of course, Cleveland dealing with Flacco and all that stuff. Watch out for Buffalo making their run. Just when we count them out, when they can't beat the Chiefs and they're up with 14 seconds left to go, here they come back. In the NFC, I do think San Francisco has an edge, but you never know. I think it's going to be a great Super Bowl.
Absolutely. Do we know who the Bills play if they win on Sunday?
It's very open-ended. Could be Pittsburgh. It's very open-ended.
As
The
long
only
as
thing
it's
that we
not
have,
Cleveland. As long as it's not Cleveland, I feel good about them.
yeah, I don't believe it is. I know that Kansas City's locked into the 3. I think there is a path here that could be Pittsburgh, Buffalo. Be very interesting.
Yeah, Buffalo -4.
Yeah, exactly.
Buffalo -4. Mike Randle, catch all this stuff on FTN and follow him on Twitter at Randle Rant. Mike, this was awesome. I appreciate you, man.
Awesome, man. Thanks so much.